Late at night. I was dead to the world when my former boss called. My cousin picked up and simply said, "He's asleep." He hung up the phone in a heavy brooding silence. The following day, I woke up to find 99 missed calls blowing up my phone. Just as I managed to text back a single question mark, his reply flashed across the screen, "I'm downstairs." Who would have thought a woman famous for her icy elegant composure would lose her mind over a single sentence from my cousin, driving nonstop for 3,000 miles through the night? With the corners of her eyes flushed a desperate red, her voice dropped to a low, breathless rasp. "I'm done pretending. Please, just don't go looking for other women, okay? I'm yours. My heart, my body, everything." I was stunned. Just 3 months ago, she swore she was incapable of falling for anyone. How did everything flip so suddenly? Everyone in the city knew the legend. The richest woman's top executive was her most lethal asset. No matter how catastrophic the crisis, I was the one who could neutralize it with surgical precision and clean up her every mess. Countless rivals tried to headhunt me with golden handshakes, yet I never wavered for even a second. I'm the type of man who values loyalty to the bitter end. Everyone speculated that we were the ultimate power couple, but she shot those rumors down time and time again. He is strictly my most indispensable partner. I simply smiled and kept my mouth shut. I had been hopelessly in love with her for 8 years, treating her like my North Star. But now I'm just exhausted. As we stepped out of the boardroom together, I gazed at the city lights and suddenly spoke up. "Boss, I'll say, I'd like to take a long-term leave starting tomorrow." To be precise, I was handing in my resignation. But I knew Jiang Qiu would never sign off on my departure, so I planned to make my move first and ask questions later. Sure enough, her brow furrowed instantly in disapproval. "Give me a reason," I replied flatly. "This project has drained me. I just need some time to breathe." Noticing the dark circles of fatigue etched under my eyes, her gaze softened. "Fine, go home." As the car made a sharp turn on the way back, the momentum sent me crashing right into her. Jiang Qiu instinctively reached out to steady me in her arms. That familiar warm scent enveloped me in a heartbeat. "Why are your hands like ice? You need to dress warmer." I gently pushed her away. "Yeah, I got it." Jiang Qiu's brow furrowed slightly at my sudden coldness. "You've been avoiding me lately." Whether it was professionally or in our private time, I had clearly been making a conscious effort to dodge her. Before I could even formulate a response, she pressed on asking, "Is it because of the rumors? Is it the gossip about me and Sheng Xiaozi?" Sheng Xiao's was the hand-picked brand ambassador for one of our subsidiary labels. Lately, the tabloids were obsessed with their alleged secret romance. But I knew better than anyone that it was all fake. I shook my head slowly, only for Jiang Qiu to suddenly jerk me toward her. She fell effortlessly into my embrace, whispering low, "I could never fall for someone like him." I gave a faint, non-committal hum. I know. I knew she wouldn't fall for anyone at all, and that included me. I gazed down at the city lights flickering outside the glass, forcing my voice into its most relaxed tone. "Qiu! Oh, I'm just burnt out. It's been an eternity since you let me take a real break." In private, she always preferred when I called her that. I once believed I was someone special to her. But special is a far cry from being loved. On that Valentine's Day 3 years ago, I had tentatively asked her, "Qiyu, shall we head back and celebrate the holiday together tonight?" Jiang Qiu had looked at me with an amused, mocking expression, stating with pure indifference, "We aren't a couple. Why on earth would we celebrate Valentine's Day?" That was the exact second I realized that in her world I essentially amounted to nothing. Even though we were more intimate than any actual couple, she would never ever give me the one thing I craved. Cutting off my useless emotions, I stepped out of the car and said flatly, "I'm heading up now." She looked as if she wanted to follow me inside, her crimson lips parting slightly, but she only reached out to straighten my messy scarf. "Get some proper rest." I squeezed out a hollow smile as a final goodbye. "You still have that social engagement later, right? Don't overdo the drinking." I didn't tell a soul that this vacation would be permanent, so long that I'd never return to her side. December 17th. Only 2 days left until I head back home. Shortly after hanging up with my mother, the doorbell chimed through the apartment. It was the assistant I was training for the handover. His eyes were brimming with desperate urgency and plea. "Special Assistant Shen, I have an emergency document that requires the boss's signature, but I simply cannot find her anywhere. Everyone says only you can reach her. Could you please help me out? If this gets delayed, our entire department's performance bonus will be wiped out." I glanced at the paperwork clutched in the assistant's hand. It was a crucial project I had already handed over during my transition. I figured I'd lend the company one last helping hand. I reached out and took the file. "Leave it to me." The assistant bowed in gratitude. "Thank you so much, Assistant Shun. I'm counting on you." Once he departed, I scrolled through my social feed for a lead. Soon enough, through one of Jiang Qiu's close associates, I pinpointed her exact location. I headed straight there without a second's delay. Arriving at the entrance of the private suite at Muyun Club, I confirmed Jang Tio's presence through the glass. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard my own name being mentioned inside. It was her friend asking Chiu, "How come we haven't seen you lately? With that loyal assistant of yours trailing behind." Oh, another voice immediately chimed in. "Right. Isn't he the one who loves nagging you about your drinking? Acts just like a protective boyfriend. Yet he's nowhere to be seen today." Jang Tio responded with her signature nonchalance. "He's on leave." As those words landed, they were met with even deeper mocking laughter. "On leave? That's rare. I honestly thought he'd be willing to work himself to death and sacrifice his entire soul for you." My expression froze in an instant. So my devotion to Jang Tio was common knowledge to everyone. To this blatant mockery, Jang Tio offered no defense. Then that same person probed further, but seriously though. "Yeah, you haven't looked at another man in all these years. You haven't actually fallen for that assistant Shen of yours, have you?" A sudden heavy silence descended upon the room. Then I heard Jang Tio's cold response, "Me. I am incapable of loving anyone. Love is the most utterly useless thing in this world." Her voice was as aggressive and detached as ever. Yet it felt like a razor-sharp dagger, delivering the final lethal blow straight to my chest, shattering the last flickering ember of love in my heart. I stood there by the door, motionless for a long time. Only then did I press the handle and push the door open. The moment I entered, every eye in the room locked onto me. Amidst their mocking whispers and ridicule, I walked straight to Jang Tio without flinching. I pulled out the document and handed it over. "Boss, this file requires your immediate signature." I didn't utter a single word about the wine in her hand. My eyes were strictly professional. The air turned stagnant. She shot me a dark, unreadable look, but ultimately signed the papers in total silence. I promptly retrieved the file and gave a curt nod. "Then, boss, I'll take my leave now." I truly didn't waste a single extra breath on her as I turned and marched straight out of the suite. I didn't look back, not even once. Her friends tried to break the tension. Still drinking, Jang Tio, however, set her glass down. No, she just sat there frozen in place, staring at the doorway where I had vanished, her face twisted into a mask of pure gloom. December 18th, only one day left until I head home. I stayed indoors the entire day, packing the final remnants of my life into a suitcase. By now, I had scrubbed the entire apartment completely clean, so clean that when I walk out tomorrow, every trace of my 8-year existence in this place will be utterly erased. The next day, Jang Tio didn't flake out. She arrived right on time to drive me to the airport. Yet the entire journey was defined by a deafening silence. Arriving at Liyun Airport, she didn't just drop me off and leave. Instead, she carried my luggage and walked me all the way to the boarding gate. This exact same airport, 8 years ago when I chose to build a life with her. I arrived here from my hometown, a total stranger to the city. Jang Tio was the one who picked me up then. Now, as I leave this city, she's the one seeing me off. I suppose we can call this a clean break. Suddenly, the boarding announcement blared over the speakers. "Passengers for Flight 42109, please prepare to board." I reached for my bag. "Boss, eat. I'll take the luggage now. Thanks for the ride today." "I appreciate it." Just as I went to take the handle, she suddenly lunged into my arms. "Come back soon." I didn't give her an answer to that. But for once, I didn't pull away from her embrace. I gave her a soft, fleeting embrace. In a whisper, I muttered a final "take care." "Goodbye," until the boarding announcement blared again. Jang Tio was the first to let go. I gripped my luggage and began to walk away. I didn't hesitate and I didn't dare look back. I simply raised my hand and gave a casual wave. Everything seemed as mundane as a routine send-off. But only I knew this was our final farewell. From this moment on, I'm never returning to this city, and our paths will never cross again. The woman stood frozen, watching me drift further away, only retracting her gaze once I had completely vanished. She didn't leave immediately. Instead, she lingered there for what felt like an eternity, waiting until my flight reached its scheduled departure. The thunderous roar of the engines filled the air. Jang Tio peered through the airport glass, witnessing clearly as yet. The white plane streaked across the sky like a severed kite, quickly fading into the vast empty blue. For some inexplicable reason, a sudden sharp pang of anxiety gripped her heart, as if something vital had just been ripped away. Right then her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a scheduled email I had set to send. She opened it, and the words hit her like a physical blow. Just one sentence, "Let's end things here." Attached was my formal resignation letter. Jang Tio stiffened in shock. Resignation. Her brow furrowed into a deep, jagged scowl as she stared at the spot where the plane had disappeared. Her dark pupils were trembling with agitation, hiding a surging tide of emotions. "End things here. How could you possibly think we can just end it like this? Lu Chengyu, how can you discard 8 years so effortlessly?" At that moment, Xiao He approached her. "President Jiang, the board meeting is about to commence. Please, we need to get to the car immediately." Jiang Qiu finally tore her eyes away from the sky. After a heavy moment of silence, she turned and began to stride away. Then she commanded, book me a flight to Yunnan province. As partners for 8 long years, there was no way she didn't know exactly where my home was. I leaned against the window watching the world shrink away, until nothing but a sea of clouds remained. This time I've truly escaped the gravity of that city. No more worrying about the progress of work projects. No more panicking because Jiang Qiu fell ill, or rushing back through the night for her sake. There is nothing left here to bind my heart. The moment I finally let go, a wave of relief washed over me, and a heavy bone-deep exhaustion began to pull at my consciousness. I closed my eyes and drifted into a deep sleep. When I finally woke, I was back in the familiar warmth of my hometown. It had been nearly a full year since my last visit. During last year's spring festival, I only managed to stay for 3 measly days before rushing back. Guilt gnawed at my soul. My father passed away when I was just a child, leaving my mother and me to survive against the world alone. My mother was already waiting for me at the arrivals gate. The moment we met, she grabbed my hands tight, furrowing her brow as she scanned me from head to toe. Look at you. You've withered away to skin and bone. So I forced a smile and replied, it's just the oversized clothes. They make me look thinner than I actually am. I chuckled and wrapped an arm around her shoulders, guiding her toward the exit. She gave my hand a playful scolding swat. I don't buy it. Since you're home, I'm going to nurse you back to health. I nodded with a genuine smile. Okay. Thank you, Mom. Seeing the new streaks of silver in her hair, my eyes began to sting with unshed tears. The truth is, over these past few years, I was so consumed by work that I'd skip meals for days, eventually developing a chronic stomach condition. Coming back to my senses, I realized I really had wasted away, and my body was riddled with various ailments. But I believe everything will slowly mend now, because from this moment forward, I will only invest my love in myself and my precious family. As soon as we stepped through the front door, Mom was already a whirlwind in the kitchen prepping dinner. Sweet and sour pork ribs, tomato stir-fried with eggs, and lotus root soup. It was a feast of all my favorites. While I helped her prep the ingredients, our casual chatter eventually drifted toward Jiang Qiu. Chengyu, you haven't dated anyone in all these years. Is there someone special hidden in your heart? I froze for a heartbeat, then shook my head. Of course not. But Mom saw right through my poker face. You think you can hide the truth from your own mother? Be honest with me. Is it that female boss of yours? Well, I laughed it off, trying to deflect the subject. Let's not talk about that, Mom. What if I just stay here and keep you company forever? I'll just quit working and stay by your side, all right? Mom continued slicing the vegetables, clearly not taking my words to heart. You've always valued that career so much. Stop playing around. Just tell me when you plan to head back this year, so I can start getting things ready. I took a sharp breath and then slowly exhaled. Mom, I quit. I'm not going back. She initially thought I was just joking again, but she froze the moment she saw the look on my face. Chengyu, are you actually serious? I gave a slow, firm nod, my voice eerily calm. That job? It was just too draining. My mother stared at me, her lips trembling as she hesitated. She knew better than anyone that her son was never one to fear hard work. He must have endured some other kind of pain. But seeing how composed I was and that I didn't want to talk, she didn't even know where to begin. Suddenly, the sound of the sizzling pan shattered the heavy, awkward atmosphere. The food is going to burn. Her attention immediately snapped back to the stove. Fortunately, the meal turned out perfectly despite the tension. After dinner, we sat and talked for an eternity. The next day, I accompanied Mom to the supermarket. At the checkout, a familiar voice suddenly called out, Chengyu. I blinked in surprise, turning around to see the person. Jingshuan, I exclaimed. When did you get back into town? Gu Jingshuan used to be my absolute best friend in college, at least until he moved abroad. Meanwhile, I had headed off to Licheng, and with the distance between us, our communication eventually faded away. Gu Jingshuan's face lit up. Once he realized it was actually me, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. It really is you, I saw. I've been back in the country for over a month now. I've even heard about your fame as a legendary assistant Shen. Haha, hearing that title again. I simply gave a non-committal smile. My mother remembered this boy well. He used to frequent our house back in the day. She grabbed the shopping basket from my hand and suggested, Chengyu, go catch up with your friend. Before I could even react, Gu Jingshuan was already dragging me away, not forgetting to wave a quick goodbye to my mother. Shouting back a quick, thanks, Auntie. We headed to the vintage cafe we used to haunt as students. I scanned the interior, a wave of nostalgia hitting me. I can't believe this place is still standing after all these years. Gu Jingshuan shared my amazement, pulling me into a seat. I know, right? So how has life been treating you? I let out a soft chuckle. Just the endless grind of work. What about you, upon hearing my question? Gu Jingshuan let out a heavy dramatic sigh. On paper, I was studying abroad for advanced degrees. But in reality, it was pure psychological torture. Chungyu, let me tell you, the food over there wasn't even fit for human consumption. Gu Jingxuan began his relentless animated rant. I listened in a peaceful silence, feeling that long-lost sense of relaxation finally return. It felt as if in a blink I'd been transported back 8 years. Once Gu Jingxuan finally talked himself out, he took a sip of coffee and leaned in for some gossip. Chungyu, are you seeing anyone got a girlfriend? Isaitsi. I shook my head. Haven't found the right person yet. I've loved, I've chased, but it just wasn't meant to be. Gu Jingxuan rubbed his hands together excitedly. Well, I have the perfect recommendation for you. Interested? I teased him with a grin. What is it? One of your own rejected pursuers? He huffed in mock indignation. I'm not that much of a backstabber. I guarantee she's a stunner. You'll be hooked, I promise. Seriously, won't you even consider it? I laughed and countered, if she's that great, keep her for yourself. Gu Jingxuan waved me off dismissively. That's impossible. She's my older sister. I've already asked her to pick us up and drop us home. Decide for yourself after you see her. It's not too late. I didn't take a single word of his matchmaking seriously. We chatted for a while longer, until someone actually showed up to pick him up. The moment my eyes met the woman stepping out of the car, both of us froze in absolute shock. She was the first to regain her composure and recognize me. Special Assistant Shun. I snapped out of it with a polite nod. President Gut. What a coincidence. At Gunanji, we had crossed paths several times at the office. She was Zhang Tio's fiercest business rival. I never expected our paths to cross in my tiny hometown. Gu Jingxuan was equally stunned. Wait, you two know each other? I clarified that we'd merely crossed paths. Gunanji didn't press further, only noting. It's getting late. Get in, I'll drop you both off. I intended to decline. But Gu Jingxuan's sheer persistence was impossible to resist. So I ended up in the car. As the vehicle glided forward, the atmosphere was a far cry from the stifling silence that usually hung between me and Jiang Qiu. With Gu Jingxuan around, there was never a dull moment. Suddenly, Gu Nanji brought her up. So Jiang Qiu finally found a conscience and gave you some time off. I replied with a flat tone, it's a long leave. Gu Nanji let out a soft chuckle. A rare moment of humanity then. Special Assistant Shen, if you ever decide to jump ship, our Gu Group's doors are always open for you. Unwilling to linger on the topic of us, Jiang Qiu, I immediately pivoted. President Gu, let's leave the business talk at the office while I'm on vacation. Gu Jingshen chimed in, exactly. Don't be such a buzzkill. Gu Nanji laughed and offered a quick apology. My bad, I wasn't being very considerate. In truth, I didn't care who I worked for anymore. I just wanted to switch my brain off entirely. I desperately needed a period of total rest. For 8 long years, I had obsessed over being the perfect assistant Shen, all to meet Jiang Qiu's impossible expectations. I had bled too much time and soul into that role. Now that I've suddenly cut the cord, I honestly don't know how long it'll take before I feel like myself again. I gazed out the window. The rain had started to pour. The car pulled up right in front of my neighborhood gate. Oh man, Chengyu, you don't have an umbrella, do you? I'll have my sister walk you in. Gu Jingxuan gave Gu Nanji a suggestive nudge. I shot it down instantly. No need. I'll just borrow one from the security guard. With that, I darted under the eaves of the guard post and leaned in to ask the guard if he had a spare umbrella. The guard shook his head. Just lent the last one out. I guess I truly understood the meaning of yi. When it rains, it absolutely pours. I let out a heavy sigh. But as I turned to leave, Gu Nanji's voice sounded right beside me. Let's go. I'll walk you in. I looked up and realized Gu Nanji had already opened her umbrella and was standing by my side. Since it had come to this, I couldn't really refuse their kindness any longer. From the neighborhood entrance to my building, it was roughly a 5-minute trek. Gu Nanji spoke up, shattering the silence. Xiao Xiuan is trying to play matchmaker for us. I exhaled a cloud of white mist. Don't take him seriously. At that, she seemed to grow curious. You truly won't even consider it. My specs are quite high. You idiot said these. And I actually have a favorable impression of you. I chuckled. Your impression is strictly about my work ethic, right? Gu Nanji's voice was laced with amusement. And that's exactly why I love dealing with smart people. Suddenly, in the next heartbeat, she cried out urgently, "Watch out!" Caught completely off guard, I was jerked toward her by Gu Nanji, right where I had been standing a second ago. A motorcycle tore through the center of the road, sending a massive spray of muddy water flying. Before I could even process what happened, my instincts kicked in and I backed away to create space between us. But at that exact moment, a hauntingly familiar voice pierced through the rhythm of the rain, drifting clearly into my ears. You... I froze. My gaze instantly collided with a pair of piercing bright eyes. Jiang Qiu was standing right there at the foot of my building. I looked away after just a single glance. Instead, it was Gu Nanji who spoke first on President Jiang Yet. What brings you all the way out here? Zhang Tio shot her a frigid look before addressing me again. You come here. I didn't budge. I rejected her in total silence. Gunanji curled her lip, her expression a mix of amusement and mockery. President Jiang, do you always police your employees' private lives even on their day off? Zhang Tio snapped coldly, shut up. This has nothing to do with you. When she spoke to me again, her voice was even more intense than usual. You come over here. Get away from her. I parted my lips, staring calmly at the person before me. Zhang Tio. On what grounds are you saying these things to me, Kolk? On what grounds do you have to say this? Zhang Tio's brow knitted tightly. You are my special assistant and my most indispensable partner. That response was exactly what I expected. I immediately shot down her justification. But I've already resigned. Her tone turned cold and rigid. I do not accept your resignation. I exhaled a cloud of white mist into the air, speaking with eerie calmness. President Jiang, even if you refuse to acknowledge it, the document has been officially stamped. It is now legally binding. Zhang Tio's brow furrowed even deeper in frustration. I sighed and turned to Gunanji. Thank you for everything. I'm sorry you had to witness such a pathetic scene today. Gunanji simply shook her head, acting like it was no big deal. Just as I was about to say more, my wrist was suddenly clamped by a vice-like grip. Zhang Tio surged forward, stepping into the pouring rain as her voice softened. Be reasonable. You, seeing this, Gunanji tried to intervene, but I regained my composure and stopped her. President Gu, please just head out now. Take Xiaoshuan home. I had no desire to let this escalate into a public spectacle. It wouldn't end well for anyone involved. Gunanji hesitated for a heartbeat, then handed me the umbrella before turning to leave. I snapped coldly, Enough, Zhang Tio. I am genuinely exhausted. The corners of Zhang Tio's eyes flushed a vivid scarlet. She stared at me intensely, exhausted. In what way have I not treated you well enough? If I hadn't already known the bitter truth, anyone seeing her this frantic and desperate over me would have probably felt their heart soften. Unfortunately, I knew the reality better than anyone. Those words from that night echoed in my ears again. Me? I am incapable of loving anyone. The very thing Zhang Tio looked down upon with such disdain was the one thing I had craved from her the most. But that was in the past. Everything we had is nothing more than a memory now. I took a deep, steadying breath and forcefully pried her fingers off me one by one, leaving absolutely no room for negotiation. Zhang Tio, forget about all of it. There is no going back to the way things were. Zhang Tio's eyes darkened ominously, yet her grip didn't loosen in the slightest. I watched as the hand I just pried away tightened again, and a surge of stifled anger rose in my chest. Her hand clenched around me once more. A surge of suffocating frustration boiled within me. Since Zhang Tio clearly doesn't love me, what is the point of this relentless pursuit? A heavy silence fell, leaving us in a tense standoff, until my mother's voice shattered the deadlock. Chengyu. Is that you? Did you forget your umbrella again? Watching my mother approach with her umbrella, I let out a heavy, weary sigh. I decided to call a temporary truce with Zhang Tio, President Jiang, in front of my mother. I expect us to maintain at least a civil appearance. Zhang Tio locked eyes with me for a long moment, offering no verbal response, but she gradually released her grip on my arm. My mother spoke up with immediate concern. You silly child, how did you end up completely drenched like this? Hurry home with me and get into some dry clothes. If you didn't have an umbrella, why didn't you just call me Tuai? She began pulling me toward the house, only to turn and realize someone was standing beside me. She asked in confusion, and this lady is... I stole a glance at Zhang Tio before replying, Mom. This is President Jiang. My mother froze for a second upon hearing the name. Did you come all this way specifically for our Chengyu? Zhang Tio gave a subtle nod, her elegant camel-colored coat soaked through. My mother's brow furrowed with hospitality. Whatever it is, come inside it and change out of those wet clothes. It's freezing out here. You'll catch a deathly cold. I knew my mother's soft-hearted personality all too well. She was bound to insist that Zhang Tio stay. That was exactly why I demanded we play nice. But I never anticipated that Zhang Tio would have the audacity to stay the night. As I was drying my hair with a towel, I watched her lie through her teeth without blinking. Auntie, the heavy storm has delayed all outbound flights. Would it be possible for me to stay the night? My mother hesitated, turning her gaze toward me. I stopped drying my hair mid-motion, stating flatly, President Jiang is a busy woman with a schedule. It's better if you head back as soon as possible. A flight delay wouldn't last nearly that long. Zhang Tio spoke in a hoarse, strained voice. I'm sorry, I'm feeling quite dizzy and lightheaded. I just need to rest for one night. If it's inconvenient, I'll go book a hotel right now. I stared at the woman before me, words dying in my throat. I'll go find a hotel room immediately. I stared at the woman before me, words dying in my throat, my brow furrowing and relaxing in a restless cycle. My mother finally intervened. Forget it. Staying for one night is no trouble at all. We have a spare guest room. By the way, President Jiang, we don't have any clothes that would fit you here. If you don't mind too much, you'll have to make do with a bathrobe for now. It should be warm enough inside the house. Jiang Tiao replied hastily, I don't mind at all. I'll have someone deliver a change of clothes later. As I watched her disappear into the bathroom, my mother leaned in close to my side. She whispered, Chengyu, why did your boss show up here? Is there some unfinished business at the office? Or is she here to win you back? I shook my head. It's nothing. Just some minor issues with the project handover. It'll all be settled very soon. Truthfully, I had no clue what Jiang Tiao was actually playing at. But regardless of her true motives, from now on we are nothing more than strangers. By the time Jiang Tiao finished her shower and stepped out in clean attire, I was the only one left in the living room, reclining on the sofa with a book in hand. For a fleeting second, she seemed dazed as if she were hallucinating, that this place was our old shared apartment. But when I looked up at her, my voice was icy and detached. President Jiang using your business negotiation tactics on a man isn't going to get you anywhere this time. In an instant, Jiang Tiao was jolted from her fantasy. The surroundings were utterly foreign to her, and even I had become someone she no longer recognized. Jiang Tiao walked over and sat down beside me, stating coldly, you. Once you finish throwing this tantrum, come home with me. I'm willing to act as if none of this ever happened. I lapsed into silence for a few heavy seconds, before sighing in exasperation. Jiang Tiao, how can you still not understand I am never going back. Whatever we had is dead and buried. Do you get it now? See? Jiang Tiao felt as if a massive boulder had crushed her chest, a suffocating weight that fueled her rising irritation. No. That's enough. I snapped my book shut, my tone hard and unwavering. President Jiang, stop calling me by that name. As the rain beat against the window, my phone suddenly lit up on the coffee table. A message notification from Gu Nanji flashed. The screen glowed brightly in the dim room. It was a text from Gu Nanji. How are things going? Jiang Tiao didn't try anything crazy, did she? I reached out to grab my phone, but a hand slammed down, pinning my palm firmly to the table. Jiang Tiao forcefully interlaced her fingers with mine, forcing them apart, her expression terrifyingly grim and shadowed. Then tell me, whose voice do you want to hear calling your name? Gu Nanji's. I knit my brows, but I couldn't break her grip. My voice turned sharp and icy. If that's what you want to believe, then fine. Have it your way. Jiang Tiao's gaze darkened instantly, staring at me for a long, agonizing moment without a word. Just then, the phone screen flickered again. A second message from Gu Nanji arrived. Xiao Xuan was worried about you and used my phone to text. He's dramatic. It was all just a big misunderstanding. Jiang Tiao froze for a second, visibly letting out a sigh of relief. I seized the opening and shoved her away with all my strength, standing up to leave the room immediately. Jiang Tiao's voice was barely a whisper now, sounding more like she was talking to herself. Yet every word reached my ears. I'm sorry, Yonk. I was just terrified of losing you. Otherwise, why would you just abandon me for no reason, Hia? I finally reached my breaking point and couldn't stay silent. It wasn't for no reason. Jiang Tiao's eyes were filled with genuine, pathetic confusion. Then, because of what, I realized I'd let my tongue slip again. Jiang Tiao is the type of person who will never understand. So why should I even bother bringing it up? I shook my head slowly. It's nothing. I'm going to bed now. You should get some rest too, President Jiang, unless you plan on missing your flight tomorrow. Jiang Tiao watched my retreating back, feeling as if her heart were being crushed by a massive, invisible hand squeezing the life out of her. The pain was agonizing, a sensation she had never felt before. She sat in the living room for an eternity, unable to close her eyes. Over the past 8 years, she had truly come to view that apartment where I stayed as her only real sanctuary. It wasn't because of the location, and it certainly wasn't for any professional reason. It was because she knew that I would always be there waiting for her. But now, here I was in my true home, while she was nothing more than an outsider. The photos on the shelf, but now I was back in my real sanctuary, and she was just a stranger. The childhood portraits, the awards I had accumulated growing up, the memorial tablet for my late father. She had never laid eyes on any of these. Jiang Tiao narcissistically believed she knew me inside out, but only now did she begin to realize that I was actually the one who knew everything about her. After 8 long years of living in each other's pockets, she couldn't even fathom the reason why I had chosen to walk away from it all. When I finally woke, Jiang Tiao had already vanished, just like old times. Except here, she left absolutely no trace of her existence behind. Her abrupt intrusion and quiet departure felt as if they had never even happened. I quickly settled back into my peaceful, carefree life, A few days passed and it was now December 24th, Christmas Eve. Back in Licheng, Jiang Qiu and Sheng Xiao's met again to drum up some hype for their fan-shipped couple image. Jiang Qiu remained as expressionless and stoic as ever, while Sheng Xiao's fake smile began to crack for the cameras. The moment the event finally concluded, Sheng Xiao's mask fell instantly. He casually asked, "Hey, President Jiang, isn't Assistant Shen's hometown somewhere in Yunnan?" Jiang Qiu, who was about to walk away, suddenly stiffened. She gave a low-clipped response. Sheng Xiao's continued oblivious to the tension. "Perfect, because I'm planning to head down there for a short vacation myself. Assistant Shen is the most reliable guy I know. I'll just have him be my personal guide, so I don't have to deal with any shady tour traps. Tomorrow is Christmas after all. Yay." "President Jiang, you're obviously going to find Assistant Shen to celebrate the holiday together, right?" Jiang Qiu pursed her lips, offering no answer. Sheng Xiaoze didn't seem to care if she replied or not. "Well, I won't crash your romantic world for two. I'll just head over there in a while." Everyone naturally assumed that it was a given for her to spend the holidays with me. Even Jiang Qiu herself took it for granted. After Sheng Xiaoze departed, she turned and ordered the driver to take her to my old apartment. Ever since I walked out, this was the very first time she had returned. Without me here to anchor the space, that apartment was just a hollow shell. Ever since I walked out for good, this was the first time she had stepped inside. With my presence finally gone, this place to her had become nothing more than a generic sterile residence. The digits of the passkey she punched in had been used by her for 8 long years. Entering them was pure muscle memory. As she pushed the door open, what met her eyes was no longer that warm, soulful sanctuary she once knew. It was pristine vacant, and completely devoid of any trace of human life. Over the years, only when she was by my side could she ever feel a single shred of peace. But now I was gone, having ruthlessly scrubbed away every remnant of our past. Jiang Qiu couldn't wrap her head around it. How could two people once so inextricably close suddenly become complete strangers like this? Just what kind of devastating event could have driven me to make such a final decision? In the past, we had made a solemn pact that we would voice any conflict that arose, believing that every obstacle could be overcome. She rubbed her throbbing temples and collapsed onto the sofa, now draped in dust covers, muttering under her breath, "Shen Chengyu, you lied to me." Jiang Xiu was jolted awake by the very first fireworks streaking into the sky. The clock had already struck midnight. Christmas Day had officially arrived. On the streets far below, festive holiday anthems began to blare from the shops, radiating a vibrant, joyous energy. In all the Christmases past, I would always cancel every single work engagement, just to spend the entire day at home with her. I would carefully curate the perfect gifts, and labor over an elaborate 5-star feast. In the biting winter cold, we would huddle together, sometimes getting lost in a classic movie, sometimes taking a quiet stroll along the riverbank, or occasionally losing ourselves in the lights of an amusement park. Would Shen Chengyu really come back this year? Once she wouldn't have hesitated for a heartbeat to answer that. But this year, she was consumed by a chilling uncertainty. Chengyu simply cannot leave me. I will drag him back no matter what it takes. I absolutely cannot afford to lose him. Jiang Qiu immediately dialed Xiao He with a sharp command. Book me the absolute earliest flight to Yunnan. On the other end, Xiao He was jolted from a deep slumber, dazed for a split second, before realizing Jiang Qiu was actually coming for me. She hurriedly complied. Xiao He, still groggy from her interrupted sleep, stiffened in surprise as the realization hit that Jiang Qiu was hunting me down. She quickly stuttered, "Yes, I'll book it right away." Elsewhere, I was also staring up at the fireworks, watching each brilliant blossom explode in a riot of color, igniting the midnight sky, before silently fading away into cold dust. I've always loved fireworks. Among the few precious memories I have of my father, the clearest is the 3 of us standing by the riverbank, mesmerized by the spectacular display blooming across the water. Back then, everyone's face was etched with pure joy, their eyes reflecting a kaleidoscope of vibrant light. Later on the fateful day I met Jiang Qiu, the sky was also filled with blossoming pyrotechnics. I once truly believed that our meeting was written in the stars. Yet I wasted 8 long years, and never once heard a single "I love you" from her lips. Suddenly, Gu Jingshuan's ecstatic voice cut through the air. "Chengyu, you won't believe what I've brought." I turned around, only to see him grinning while pointing at Gu Nanji behind him. Gu Nanji offered a helpless yet elegant smile. Since the Gu parents were staying abroad this year, I had specially invited the siblings to celebrate with us. The more the merrier, after all. Before, because Jiang Qiu loathed noise and crowds, we spent every holiday in a state of dull, quiet isolation. After years of suppressing my own desires to please her, even I had lost the spark and energy to actually celebrate anything. Unexpectedly, Gunanji leaned in and asked, "Are you and Jiang Qiu truly over?" I flashed a calm, effortless smile. "We never really had a deep connection to begin with, eh?" I simply resigned and walked away. It's as simple as that. Hearing Jiang Qiu's name once again, I realized I could finally remain completely indifferent. Gu Jingxuan overheard our conversation and stubbornly leaned in, still trying to play matchmaker. Cheng Yu, why don't you give it a shot with my sister Tilo? Isn't the best way to move on from a past flame to immediately find the next one? I shook my head helplessly. I'm not going through a breakup. I simply quit my job. Gu Jingxuan opened his mouth to protest, but was cut off by my mother's voice. Dinner's ready. Get inside, everyone, before it gets too cold. So Gu Nanji and I both tacitly ignored Gu Jingxuan's ramblings as we headed inside. We walked into the house one after another. The four of us gathered around the table in perfect harmony. I felt more certain than ever that leaving Jiang Qiu was the best decision of my life. The next morning, I woke up early to sweep away the charred remains of the fireworks. The dawn had only just broken, and most people were still lost in their dreams. The world around me was shrouded in silence, broken only by the rhythmic scratching of my broom, until footsteps echoed behind me. I reflexively stepped aside to let them pass, but the person came to a halt right beside me, thrusting a gift box into my line of sight. Merry Christmas. You. I noticed Jiang Qiu was wearing the scarf I had given her as a gift last year. My brow furrowed slightly. I gripped my broom and turned to walk back inside. Jiang Qiu, don't come here anymore. But she couldn't help grabbing my arm. The moment our eyes met, she wordlessly pulled her hand back as if burned. She stared at me, blurting out the pathetic excuse she'd prepared. Sheng Shaoze, did he ask you to be his tour guide? I paused for a second. Yes. In reality, Jiang Qiu had been waiting there for ages. Her car was parked just a short distance away. She had sat there watching me walk out and diligently start my morning chores. I looked nothing like the man who worked at the office. My face was radiating a sense of peace and fulfillment. A strange bitter emotion surged within Jiang Qiu's heart. It turns out that without me, his life has become much brighter. She knew that for my sake, she truly ought to just walk away. But she couldn't bring herself to do it. She absolutely physically could not let go. So Jiang Qiu approached me anyway, clutching at a flimsy excuse. Could you be my guide? Just show me around the neighborhood. Even if it's just as a former colleague. Those last two words seemed to be forcefully squeezed from deep within her throat. It had never even crossed her mind that a day would eventually come where our entire history would be reduced to former colleagues. Without a moment's hesitation, I shook my head. I can't. Jiang Qiu froze as I denied her. President Jiang, with one word from you, any professional guide would be desperate for the job. There's no need to trouble me with it. Jiang Qiu tightened her grip on the gift in her hand, her voice a fragile whisper. Can we not even be friends anymore? I didn't hesitate for a single second. She pressed on, why we've known each other for 8 years. Why am I worth even less to you than Sheng Shaoze Poi? I let out a heavy, weary exhale. It's different. Each bite sound. The corners of Jiang Qiu's eyes flushed red. She demanded to know exactly what made it so different. My lips trembled slightly, but I honestly didn't know where to begin. What was there left to say? Should I confess that because you don't love me, I have to leave? I couldn't force those words out. It would make me sound like a child throwing a tantrum, just waiting for Jiang Qiu to come and coax me back. The reality is, I have truly moved on. I have no desire to dig up the past, including the fact that I once loved Jiang Qiu with all my soul. When no answer came, Jiang Qiu's patience snapped. With bloodshot eyes, she grabbed my arm. You! Tell me why, as she continued to back me into a corner. I finally spoke, my voice low, because I'm exhausted. I don't want to work for you anymore. I don't want to care for you, and I don't even want to see you. The mere sight of you makes it impossible for me to relax. Jiang Qiu's entire body went rigid. Xiao He, who had been watching from the car, saw the two of us locked in this endless, agonizing loop. The sheer tension of it was making her skin crawl. After hesitating for what felt like an eternity, she finally couldn't take it and stepped out of the vehicle. Approaching the two of them, she began to plead earnestly, Chengyu Ge, please just find it in your heart to forgive President Jiang. In any relationship, a few arguments and squabbles are perfectly normal. But you can't just keep avoiding each other forever. Before she could finish, I cut her off with sharp precision. Xiao He, you've got it all wrong. President Jiang and I were never involved in that kind of relationship. Upon hearing this, he stood there completely dumbfounded. She blurted out in disbelief, how is that even possible? I shifted my gaze toward Jiang Qiu. President Jiang, isn't that right? Xiao He also looked over anxiously, her eyes screaming, President Jiang, please deny it. Her desperate expression practically begged, hurry up and deny it. Then go and properly comfort Assistant Shen. Jiang Qiu's brow furrowed tightly, as a single word escaped her thin lips. Right. I gave Xiao He's shoulder a gentle, reassuring pat. In the past, President Jiang and I were strictly employer and employee. Now that I've resigned, there is absolutely nothing connecting us anymore. You should focus on your work from now on and aim for that promotion to special assistant soon. With that, I turned away. Throughout the entire ordeal, I was unexpectedly the most composed person there, leaving nothing but a heavy, suffocating silence outside the door. It took an eternity for Xiao He to snap out of her state of shock. She stole several glances at Jiang Qiu, hesitating to speak. Jiang Qiu lowered her gaze, staring at the gift box that was now mangled and deformed in her grip. Her fingers clenched tighter and tighter, as she remained plunged in a long, wordless silence. Xiao He finally spoke up in a timid, cautious whisper. President Jiang, what time is our return flight today? Jiang Qiu's voice was incredibly raspy and hollow. 3 o'clock this afternoon. Jiang Qiu lapsed into thought for a fleeting moment, her hand holding the gift rising slightly before falling back down. In the end, she couldn't bear to throw it away. She tucked the item away and strode back to the car. Let's head back. As the vehicle slowly pulled away, Jiang Qiu leaned against the backrest in a profound silence, her dark eyes clouded with an unreadable somber gloom. Xiao He stole several glances through the rearview mirror, attempting to find the right words before finally speaking. She eventually couldn't hold it in any longer. President Jiang, Yao, Xiao, there is something I absolutely have to say. Xiao He immediately pressed on. President Jiang, Brother Chengyu has stayed by your side for so many years. How could you not give him even a shred of official status? It was no wonder her voice trailed off before finishing it. But the crushing weight of the unspoken truth was clear to both. Upon hearing those piercing words, Jiang Qiu felt her heart violently recoil. So was this a reason that had been haunting her mind? That one agonizing, unanswerable question suddenly seemed to have found its brutal answer. No wonder Shen Chengyu vanished without a trace. It was because his heart had been shattered into pieces. It was because she had never once summoned the courage to say, I love you. In an instant, the blood in her veins began to churn with a frantic heat, refusing to settle no matter how she tried to breathe. Her entire being pulsated with a restless, agonizing surge that made it impossible to find a moment of peace. Suddenly, she barked a command to stop the car. Pull over, go back. Xiao He understood immediately and sped back to my apartment building. Jiang Qiu began pressing the doorbell with desperate urgency. Yet the door remained stubbornly, mockingly shut. She could clearly sense someone standing just on the other side. She cried out pleading, you, please, let's just talk properly, okay? I offered absolutely no response. You, I need to see you. Just this once, even if it's for the last time. Another agonizing stretch of hollow silence followed. Then finally, the door swung open. I raised my gaze, staring at her with cold, vacant eyes, simply waiting for her to speak her piece. Jiang Qiu locked eyes with me, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knew with terrifying clarity that I was essential to her existence. But was that truly love? Jiang Qiu honestly couldn't tell, because she had always believed that love was a useless sentimental distraction. But if this was the specific answer I was starving for, Maria, then she wouldn't mind feeding me the words, as long as it brought me back to her side. Jiang Qiu was willing to sacrifice anything. She forced her ragged breathing to steady itself and whispered those 3 sacred words. You, I love you. Hearing that, I was visibly stunned. Jiang Qiu whispered again, her voice trembling. You, won't you come back to me? She reached out, her fingers trembling as she tried to touch my hand, but I reflexively pulled away from her reach. A cynical smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. Jiang Qiu, though, I never imagined you'd stoop so low just to lure me back. To think you'd actually resort to a lie like that. Jiang Qiu froze in a sudden deathly stillness. It was painfully obvious that I didn't buy it. I looked at her, my gaze as flat and stagnant as a dead sea. Jiang Qiu, is this really the best you can do? I remember with crystal clarity her once declaring that love is the most useless, pathetic trash in existence. I spent 8 grueling years proving that very point. And now, in the blink of an eye, she claims to love me. What a joke, since she finds it so worthless. She's clearly just using it as a cheap bargain chip to keep me. Jiang Qiu's voice began to tremble ever so slightly. You? This isn't a lie, I mean it. But I pushed her away, cold and utterly ruthless. Since you said this was the final time, Tia, then please never show your face here again. To shove her out of my life without mercy. If this is truly the end, then keep your distance and stop haunting my reality. The door slammed shut in Jiang Qiu's face once again. Only this time, it felt like it was locked for eternity. Jiang Qiu lost all track of time, standing like a ghost before my doorstep for God knows how long. By the time she snapped out of it, the heavens had opened up. She absolutely loathed the rain. The misty gray haze made it impossible to catch even a glimpse of me. Xiao He held up an umbrella, whispering a cautious reminder. President Jiang. It's time. We really have to leave now. Zhang Qiao masked every shred of emotion in her eyes, acting as if that soul-crushing rejection never happened, as she turned to walk away. Yet the raw bloodshot crimson staining her eyes betrayed a pain that wouldn't fade anytime soon. Inside, I was in the kitchen warming up some milk. In my past life, the very first thing I did upon wakings was brew a bitter cup of black coffee. But being home, Mom worried about my stomach and insisted I swap the caffeine for milk. A few days later, I was at the airport picking up Sheng Xiaoze. Honestly, I was still a bit baffled by the whole thing. Why on earth would someone like Sheng Xiaoze reach out to me for this? It's not like we were ever particularly close buddies. Our lives only intersected for professional reasons, aside from a couple of casual business dinners. Still, I didn't see any reason to turn him down. I had plenty of time on my hands anyway, and showing a friend around my hometown seemed like a decent enough way to kill time. The moment Sheng Xiaozi spotted me, he greeted me with a massive, unexpected hug. Assistant Shen. I clarified that I no longer held that title. Just call me Cheng Yu. Sheng Xiaozi blinked stunned. Not an assistant anymore. I replied with a level gaze. I resigned. This time, Sheng Xiaozi's eyes widened in genuine shock. But why did Zhang Qiao pull a bridge-burning move and dump you? I shook my head helplessly. It was my own decision. And for the record, I was never actually her boyfriend. I was utterly exhausted from explaining this point. Everyone was convinced we were a couple, yet we were anything but. Fortunately, Sheng Xiaozi didn't push for more details. Right. Whatever the case may be. We won't. Thankfully, Sheng Xiaozi dropped the interrogation. Fair enough. No matter the reality, let's just leave all that behind. I glanced at my watch. It's getting late, I suggested. Let's get your luggage to the hotel now, and we can start the sightseeing tomorrow. By the time I dropped him off at the hotel, night had fallen. Sheng Xiaozi picked up some drinks, insisting that I stay and have a few rounds with him, worried he'd end up in trouble if he drank too much alone. I decided to stick around. At first, Sheng Xiaozi took small, cautious sips, but as time passed, he grew increasingly bold, and his stories began to flow as freely as the alcohol. Let me tell you, on my last film set, that female director was a total creep, always making inappropriate jokes with the male actors. I played the role of a silent listener, nodding occasionally. I took the chance to ask why he sought me out for this trip. Sheng Xiaozi stared at me for a long beat, then chuckled, because I don't really have anyone I can trust. I froze in confusion. But within the industry, don't you have a reputation for being popular? Sheng Xiaozi downed another glass. He shook his head with a bitter smile. No, those people only stay close to me, for the sake of networking and mutual gain. Only Assistant Shen, you never tried to butter me up, and you never demanded anything from me. I have felt that way since the very first time we met. It's rare to find someone like you at a business dinner. After grinding in this industry for so long, it's rare to find someone with eyes so pure and untainted. As he spoke, Sheng Xiaozi clinked his glass against mine with a soft ring. Bottoms up. Let's officially be bros from now on. I snapped out of my daze and gathered my thoughts, raising my glass and draining it in a single gulp. It turns out even a high-profile superstar C, with a supposedly perfect social life like Sheng Xiaozi, has a mountain of hidden burdens the world never sees. I never would have guessed that he viewed me in such a positive, refreshing light. I personally never paid much attention to him beyond professional courtesy. Only when he had major collaborations with the company did I ever truly keep tabs on his activities. In my previous impression, I just assumed Sheng Xiaozi was a carefree, easygoing guy, humble, chill, and totally devoid of any celebrity ego. At times the thought would even cross my mind that perhaps Zhang Qiao and Sheng Xiaozi, being such a big-hearted, laid-back person, with his approachable and grounded personality, at times I truly did believe that Zhang Qiao and Sheng Xiaozi were actually a perfect match. But the reality is, once the cameras stop rolling, their supposed spark vanishes instantly. The two of us continued to trade stories and drinks, when Sheng Xiaozi suddenly leaned in with a gossiping grin. Cheng Yu, give me the real tea, off the record. Are you actually in love with Zhang Qiao? I offered a nonchalant, indifferent smile. I used to be. Sheng Xiaozi didn't seem surprised by that confession at all. He roared with laughter and threw an arm over my shoulder. Cheng Yu, seriously, what kind of fool is Zhang Qiao? How could she fail to keep someone like you by her side? Does she even grasp the concept of love? I bet she hasn't even figured out who she actually likes yet. I reached out to steady a wine bottle that Sheng Xiaozi nearly knocked off the table in his excitement. I replied softly, who knows? Bottom line is, she doesn't love me. Sheng Xiaozi poured another round for both of us, muttering casually, if she doesn't love you, then who could she possibly love? Well, half joking and half serious, I replied, herself most likely. Sheng Xiaozi froze for a beat before bursting into laughter. True. For these high-powered tycoons making bank, how many of them aren't obsessed with themselves? We shouldn't waste another second obsessing over these women. Focusing on our own happiness is what truly matters. I nodded in complete agreement. You're right. That's exactly why I decided to change my life. The two of us continued to drink and chat late into the night, finally drifting into a deep sleep only when dawn approached. By the time I woke up the next day, it was already high noon. I pulled out my phone to show Sheng Xiao's the detailed travel itinerary I'd prepared. Looks like today's schedule is already shot, huh? Sheng Xiao's waved it off with a carefree grin. No big deal. Vacations are meant for following your heart on a whim. We shouldn't let rigid plans and rules tie us down. I nodded slowly, feeling as if a lingering fog in my mind was finally lifting. Over the following few days, I took Sheng Xiao's to all the local spots he wanted to see. Our bond grew stronger as we enjoyed each other's company. At the airport, Sheng Xiao's hailed me as the ultimate guide. I'm definitely hitting you up for the next trip. I chuckled, realizing how much fun we'd actually had. As we said our goodbyes at the terminal, he kept praising me. Next time it's a date, you're the best, huh? I smiled and waved him off. Have a safe flight. As more time trickled by, I felt like I'd finally had enough rest to recharge. I began to casually ponder the possibilities. For my next career move, where to go and what kind of path to take. But with the new year fast approaching, I wasn't in any particular rush to hunt for a job. Instead, I spent my days buying holiday supplies with my mom, decorating the house with red couplets and intricate paper cuts. Our neighborhood was tucked away in a quiet, distant suburb. It was an older community, where almost every neighbor knew everyone else by name. People here still set off traditional firecrackers and drop by each other's homes to share greetings. It was infinitely more vibrant and lively than the cold city. I couldn't say which lifestyle was objectively better, but in this very moment, the long-lost warmth of the community completely swept me up. On New Year's Eve, my mom and I did a massive deep clean, sweeping away the old to make room for the new. I hauled out a huge crate of things I no longer needed. Inside were broken toys from my childhood and various mementos I'd brought back over the years. Specifically items connected to Zhang Qiu. I'd completely forgotten where I'd even stashed them. Items like that very first group photo from the company gala, the very first commemorative photo from when we moved into the apartment. Back then I treated these like priceless treasures. But now as I look at them, they're nothing more than useless scraps of waste paper. I unceremoniously dumped the entire pile into the complex's large trash bin, dusting off my palms. I felt that this time I was truly purging the old to embrace the new. That evening, my mother and I sat together on the sofa, joining the voices of millions on the television screen for the grand New Year's countdown. The very instant the final second ticked away, the sky outside erupted into a thunderous symphony of fireworks. I squeezed my mother's hand and said, "Mom, Happy New Year." She smiled warmly, pulling out a red envelope to press into my hand. "May my son grow even stronger and more successful in this coming year," I laughed. "Mom, I'm not a little kid anymore. I shouldn't be taking lucky money like this." Mother smiled gently, stroking my hair as she spoke softly. "But to me, you will always be my little boy." Suddenly, my phone tool began to vibrate several times in quick succession. I picked it up to check, finding a flood of celebratory texts from all my friends. Even random official accounts were spamming holiday blessings. In the past, Zhang Qiu was always pinned to the top of my chat, the first thing I'd see the moment I unlocked my screen. Now she was muted, buried deep beneath the influx of messages. In fact, at first glance, I didn't even notice that one exceptionally brief New Year's wish. Happy New Year. I replied to a few people, but exhaustion eventually took over. I set the phone aside and headed off to sleep. Early the next morning, a knock at the door jolted me awake. I headed downstairs to find a courier. Hello? You have a delivery. I signed for it without giving it much thought. After I finished washing up, I remembered the unopened package sitting there. The sender hadn't left any contact information. It was a completely anonymous shipment. I sliced it open to find an exquisite high-end wristwatch, the kind that clearly cost a small fortune. I froze. I didn't even have to guess to know that this was another one of Zhang Qiu's peace offerings. I instinctively threw open the door, hoping to see if the delivery man was still nearby. I desperately wanted to send this thing back, but the driveway was already completely deserted. I let out a weary silent sigh. Returning to my room, I grabbed my phone, hesitating for a beat before deciding to contact Xiao He. "Xiao He, I'm shipping a package your way. Make sure you accept it." Before Xiao He could even process what I meant, I abruptly cut the call. Xiao He's phone was synced to the car's navigation system, and from the backseat, Zhang Qiu instantly caught sight of the caller ID. "Oh, Cheng Yuge." Zhang Qiu's brow furrowed into a deep frown. Her voice was like ice as she asked, "What does he want with you?" Xiao He didn't think twice and told her the blunt truth. Cheng Yuge said he's mailing something to me and told me to look out for it. Zhang Qiu understood instantly. I was rejecting her gift and sending it straight back. After so many years of living in each other's shadows, we knew each other's temperaments far too well. If I had returned it directly to Jiang Qiu, she would have stubbornly refused to take it. Jiang Qiu's gaze became a storm of complex emotions. In the shadows where I couldn't see her, she had actually lurked near my house multiple times, merely watching me from a distance. When she couldn't catch a glimpse of me, she was consumed by longing, but when she actually saw me, she became resentful of the vast distance between us. She had this uncontrollable primal urge to reach out and touch me, so she forced herself to drown in work, deliberately slashing the frequency of her visits. For nearly a decade, Jiang Qiu had faced countless obstacles and threats, and she had crushed every single one without a second thought. But right now, standing before me, she felt utterly helpless and lost. What on earth did she have to do to win me back? As more days drifted by, I finally started dipping my toes into a new career path. Gu Nanji heard the news through the grapevine from Gu Jingshuan and immediately extended an olive branch to me, but I turned her down without a moment's hesitation. Gu Nanji teased me playfully. "What's the matter, feeling guilty toward your old boss, Ozuk?" I didn't let her light jab get under my skin. "Yeah, I only resigned recently. Avoiding the direct competition is just basic professional ethics." It was true that Gu Nanji and Jiang Qiu were rivals, but my loyalty was solely because Jiang Qiu was once my employer. Besides, I'm itching to dive into something completely fresh. However, I never expected that Sheng Xiao's would actually try to recruit me. "Cheng Yu, I've decided to cut ties with the agency and go rogue. I'm launching my own independent studio. If you don't mind starting small, would you consider being my head of PR?" The offer was tempting, but I didn't want to return to Lai Cheng, so I turned him down. But then just a few days later, Sheng Xiao's was suddenly hit by a massive scandal. I opened Weibo that day like I always do, only to see the #1 trending topic screaming Sheng Xiaozi's name. Sheng Xiaozi's perfect image crumbles. Sheng Xiao's caught acting like a diva on set. Multiple allegations of casting couch scandals. My heart skipped a beat. This was a blatant, calculated hit job against him. It was obvious someone was trying to bury Sheng Xiaozi. I've seen him with my own eyes during production. He's never been the type to throw fits or act entitled. Most of these hashtags were based on complete fabrications, each one more outrageous and malicious than the last. I immediately rang Sheng Xiaozi. "Are you holding up? What's the PR team doing?" On the other end, Sheng Xiaozi gave a hollow laugh. The agency did this on purpose. Guess my luck finally ran out. My chest tightened with worry. I gave my mother a quick heads up and raced back to Li Cheng that night. When Sheng Xiaozi opened the door, the sheer shock on his face was unmistakable. "Cheng Yu, what are you doing here?" I looked him in the eye. "I'm here as a friend to fix this." Without wasting a second, I began grilling him for every detail. Sheng Xiaozi looked dazed for a long while, until his frayed nerves finally began to steady. Together with the rest of the staff, I pulled an intense all-nighter fighting the flames. We finally managed to wrestle control of the narrative. The smear campaign against him had mostly been neutralized. As everyone finally exhaled in relief, Sheng Xiaozi threw an arm around me, his eyes suddenly glistening. I stiffened for a split second, but quickly relaxed into the gesture. I gave his back a reassuring pat. "It's going to be okay. Lies can't be turned into evidence if we never did the crime. But the proof they forged is being treated as gospel." In that dazed state, it felt like we were back in that hotel room that night. That night, Sheng Xiaozi had way too much to drink, alternating between sobbing and laughing hysterically. From that very second, I could truly deeply feel that Sheng Xiaozi placed his absolute trust in me. I don't have many real friends to speak of, so if Sheng Xiaozi appreciates me, I'm going to return that loyalty in full. No time for sleep, and I wouldn't dare rest anyway. I kept my eyes glued to the trending topics online, until I stumbled upon my own name in the comments. This PR style feels just like a certain old acquaintance. Shen Chengyu, the legendary special assistant to Jiang Group. I totally agree, the vibes are identical. I ship it, I totally ship it. President Jiang must be worried about Xiaozi, so she sent him full. Someone had started a viral thread, claiming President Jiang sent me because she pities Xiaozi. A post explicitly brought up my name, and a swarm of people immediately jumped on the bandwagon. Tons of delusional shippers were screaming about their ship sailing. I scanned the comments with a numb, indifferent expression. Sheng Xiaozi finally caught his breath and scoffed, "They'll literally swallow any garbage theory, won't they? Huh. They're absolutely starving for drama." I chuckled. It just proves you two look good together on camera. A few minutes later, the hot search list suddenly refreshed with a new post. It was from Jiang Qiu herself. "Sheng Xiaozi and I have never been more than professional associates." She had actually taken the initiative to personally demolish her on-screen romance with him. Both Sheng Xiaozi and I were stunned. He joked, "Don't tell me she posted that just for you to see." I shook my head. "Maybe it's just because you're currently radioactive with scandals. She probably sees no profit in being linked to you anymore." Sheng Xiaozi faked an offended pout. "Ouch. Why do you have to be so brutally honest?" Before I could even apologize, he beat me to it with a heavy, weary sigh. But you're right. Business is business. The sun is finally up. Great work, everyone. You all killed it. Breakfast is on me, my treat. After we eat, everyone go home and crash. The crew piled out of the cars to go find food. I was the last one to step out onto the pavement. Just as I was heading inside, a voice suddenly cut through the air. Brother Chengyu, it really is you. My footsteps faltered instantly. Turning around, I was once again confronted by two all too familiar silhouettes. I couldn't help but think how small Li Cheng truly is. Sheng Xiaoze noticed I wasn't following, and glancing back, his eyes landed right on Jiang Qiu. He hesitated for a heartbeat before deciding not to interfere, simply choosing to wait patiently by the side. Jiang Qiu took the initiative and strode toward me. Ah, you. I averted my gaze and turned to leave. Apologies. But I'm quite busy right now. I don't have the luxury for a trip down memory lane. Jiang Qiu blocked my path, her voice a low murmur. Come back. That special assistant position has always been reserved for you. I replied flatly. I'm truly honored. But I no longer have any use for it. With that, I sidestepped her and continued forward. After declaring that I was finally done with her, I brushed past her to keep moving. But Jiang Qiu suddenly caught my hand. Ah, you! Just believe in me this one time. Yuck. I stared back at her. Believe in what exactly? Jiang Qiu gazed into my eyes, the emotions swirling in hers so convoluted that I couldn't even begin to decipher them. She whispered, I love you, but it only struck me as a pathetic joke. President Jiang, that isn't even remotely funny. Please just let go. I'm exhausted. Jiang Qiu's grip finally slackened, her dark pupils trembling slightly as she watched my figure vanish behind the doors. Her expression darkened into a somber gloom. Sheng Xiaoze's voice suddenly drifted over from the side. If you can't even handle a little rejection like this, I suggest you just give up already. Jiang Qiu snapped out of her trance and shot him a slightly startled look. For once, she actually took the initiative to address Sheng Xiaoze. Since when did the two of you become so close? Sheng Xiaoze waved his hand dismissively. This is strictly between us men. President Jiang, you'd best stay out of it. He had realized a long time ago that Jiang Qiu was in love with me. But what he never could have imagined was that the two of us had never actually made things official. At that realization, Sheng Xiaoze shot Jiang Qiu a piercing look. This is exactly what you deserve. So suck it up and endure it. Yes. Without giving her a chance to retort, he hurried off to catch up with me. Jiang Qiu stood frozen on the spot, her brow furrowed deep, and her gaze clouded with an unreadable darkness. Sheng Xiaoze was right. She had been far too arrogant and self-centered. So no matter what path I choose to take, she no longer has the right to say a word. But giving up on me is simply not an option for her. Just as Sheng Xiaoze pointed out, if she can't even stomach a minor setback like this, then she isn't even worthy of mentioning the word love. Once I finished cleaning up the mess for Sheng Xiaoze, I headed straight back to my hometown. I had already sworn never to return to that city. Going back to Licheng temporarily was already breaking my own rules. On my second day back in Yunnan, I suddenly received a recruitment email out of the blue. But I had been swamped for the past few days and hadn't reached out to a single company, let alone sent out a resume. I had been so preoccupied lately that I hadn't even initiated a conversation with any firm. I instinctively dismissed it as some scammer's spam blush and deleted it without a second thought. To my surprise, for several consecutive days, the exact same email popped up in my inbox every single morning. Even the sender remained stubbornly the same. Are scammers really this persistent these days? Driven by a sudden wave of curiosity, I finally clicked it open to take a look and cross-referenced the address with official business records. It was a legitimate offer, and at that moment, everything finally clicked into place. I understood why they were so obsessed with hiring me. This company was a subsidiary of the Jiang Group that had just launched right here in Yunnan. What's more, the CEO of Jiang Group, Jiang Qiu, had personally come down to manage this branch. Jiang Qiu had actually moved to Yunnan, and it wasn't just a visit, it was a permanent relocation. I stared at the screen for a few silent seconds before deleting the email once again. I even went as far as blacklisting the sender entirely. I truly cannot fathom the point of Jiang Qiu's relentless stalking. Why can't she just get it through her head? There is no going back. It is absolutely fundamentally impossible. The next day, I picked a local company near my house and officially started my new job. My life settled into a peaceful, steady routine. A significant amount of time had passed, and Jiang Qiu hadn't shown her face even once. I assumed she had finally thrown in the towel and given up, allowing a wave of relief to wash over me. But that night, while scrolling through a group chat with friends, the brutal truth finally hit me. The Jiang Group was spiraling into a massive crisis. My chest tightened instantly, and my brow furrowed with instinctive concern. As one of the original founders of the Jiang Group, I naturally cared about its survival more than anyone else. I dialed Xiao Hei's number immediately. Is the company truly in that much trouble? On the other end, Xiao, he was so frantic her words were tripping over each other. Brother Chengyu, it's the real deal. President Jiang moved here to manage the branch right, and you saw me said. Well, in that short window of time, Baptiste. Several backstabbing shareholders at the headquarters pulled some shady underhanded moves. They're plotting with our competitors to stage a hostile takeover of the Jiang group at a bargain price. A bitter sting of guilt pierced through my heart. If it hadn't been for her chasing after me, Jiang Qiu never would have left the main office. Xiao He pleaded desperately. Brother Chengyu, this guilt is eating me alive. If not for me, Jiang Qiu wouldn't be in this mess. Xiao He continued to beg. Can you please come back and help us navigate this storm? I'm so swamped I haven't even had a bite to eat, and President Jiang hasn't closed her eyes in days. I have to go. The chaos is calling. I need to get back to work. Goodbye, Brother Chengyu. I could hear the frantic shouting and phones ringing in the background. Staring at the now disconnected screen, I felt a hollow, bitter taste in my mouth. What am I supposed to do now? Returning to the Jiang group means it's inevitable that my life will be entangled with Jiang Qiu once again. But if I turn a blind eye, all the blood, sweat, and tears I poured into that company will go up in smoke, and loyal staff like Xiao He will be the ones who suffer most. I didn't sleep a single wink that night. By the first light of dawn, I handed in my resignation at my current job. I chose to stand with the Jiang group to fight through this life-or-death crisis. The moment Jiang Qiu laid eyes on me, her bloodshot, weary eyes suddenly flickered with a desperate light. You? I shot her a fleeting glance, and flatly suggested you should get some sleep first. Jiang Qiu stubbornly refused. No need. I furrowed my brow, staring at her haggard face, hesitant to speak my mind. In the end, I remained silent, turning my back on her to coordinate the details with the Xiao He. Jiang Qiu watched my figure with a gaze that bordered on greed, forcing herself to endure yet another sleepless night. Eventually, Xiao He couldn't stand the sight of her suffering any longer, and secretly slipped half a sleeping pill into her coffee, finally allowing Jiang Qiu to drift off for a few meager hours. The very second Jiang Qiu jolted awake, her first instinct was to bolt upright, just to confirm that I was still there. As I turned away to continue my discussion with the team, and my eyes briefly locked with Jiang Qiu's intense gaze. After that mere split second of contact, I looked away and nonchalantly resumed my conversation. She didn't dare interrupt my workflow. But during a few minutes of downtime, she pleaded in a hoarse, broken voice, I need you. Please don't walk out on me again, okay? My resolve, however, didn't waver for a single moment. The second this crisis is resolved, I'm gone. Jiang Qiu's lips trembled slightly as she lapsed into silence. When it was finally my turn to rest, I told you I'm leaving once the job is done. Jiang Qiu's pale lips quivered, but she said nothing more. While I attempted to get some shut-eye, Jiang Qiu remained like a sentinel by my side. I'm never giving up on us. This corporate nightmare was infinitely more treacherous than Sheng Xiaozi's scandal. It took nearly an entire grueling month for the chaos to finally subside and the dust to settle. Jiang Qiu suggested a celebratory gathering, but I had absolutely no intention of attending. I gathered my belongings ready to make my exit. Jiang Qiu grabbed my wrist, pleading, you. At least stay for a meal with the team before you go. Xiao He chimed in supportively. She's right. Brother Chengyu, it's been so long since we were all together. The others joined in, begging me to stay, but I declined. I pressed my lips together and shook my head. Sorry. I've already booked my flight back. Hearing this, Jiang Qiu's heart sank into a dark abyss. I had planned my departure long before this moment, even after standing shoulder to shoulder with her for a month. Not even a shred of pity stirred within me. Jiang Qiu chased after me, her voice laced with panic. Let me drive you to the airport. Xiao He instinctively followed. President Jiang, I'll go get the car. Jiang Qiu cut him off, barking out a new set of orders. No, you stay here and organize the team's celebration. I had already broken into a brisk stride toward the exit. As I raised my hand to hail a passing taxi by the curb, another hand clamped down on my wrist, forcing it back down. Jiang Qiu's brow was knitted in a desperate scowl. I'm taking you. I shook my head. Seriously, there's no need. She whispered cautiously, please, stop rejecting me at every turn. I stared at the woman standing before me. It was undoubtedly the same face I knew so well. It was undeniably Jiang Qiu. Yet, why were her actions drifting further and further from the person in my memories? She continued to cling to me over and over, persistent as a shadow. I simply couldn't shake her off, A wave of regret began to wash over me. Why did I ever agree to come back to this place? In the end, unable to withstand her stubborn persistence, I found myself sitting in Jiang Qiu's car once again. But unlike our usual routine, we weren't sitting in the back like boss and employee. Instead, she was in the driver's seat and I was in the passenger side. I turned my head toward the window, feeling suffocated by the tension. Why can't I just sit in the back? So Jiang Qiu offered a flimsy excuse. The storm yesterday made it filthy. I haven't had a chance to clean it yet. I knew she was spinning a blatant lie. You didn't even take the car out yesterday. She muttered guiltily. I lent it to a friend. I finally gave up, refusing to waste any more breath on her. The interior of the car fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. I stared at the city lights glowing in the distance, streaking into long, distorted lines through the darkness, briefly flickering into existence before vanishing forever. Licheng's iconic landmarks remained exactly as I remembered them. People were bustling about everywhere, their laughter and joy filling the night air. It seemed as though absolutely nothing had truly changed. For one fleeting moment, a sense of profound disorientation swept over me. It felt as if everything that happened recently was nothing more than a fever dream. As if I had never actually walked away from Jiang Qiu. As if I were still that loyal assistant Shen, revolving my life around her. But I knew better than anyone that everything was different. Because the most radical change of all was my own heart. That heart which once skipped an erratic beat at the mere sight of Jiang Qiu now beats for her no differently than for a complete stranger. Turns out, letting go really does happen in a single silent instant. I was lost in my own thoughts, when the sudden violent screech of brakes and the piercing wail of a horn shattered the silence. Before I could even process what was happening, a brutal bone-crushing impact slammed into us head-on. In that life-or-death split second, Jiang Qiu didn't hesitate for a heartbeat. She lunged across the seat to shield me with her own body. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Was it pure adrenaline-fueled terror, or was it love? At this point, nobody could say for sure. My head took a violent blow against the frame, and my consciousness began to spiral into a dark haze. Faintly, Jiang Qiu's weak, trembling voice reached my ears. I love you. I truly deeply love you. I descended into a fever dream. I felt as if my body had been crushed by a gargantuan boulder, only to be cast into the depths of a dark, unforgiving ocean. I was drifting, sinking, and rising aimlessly, numb by the icy, stinging water, suffocating. A relentless tide of agony and discomfort washed over me in waves. One moment I was plummeting into a sea of flames. The next, I was drowning in the freezing Arctic deep. I struggled with every fiber of my being, clawing my way toward the surface, desperate to escape. Through the darkness of that escape, a single brilliant ray of light pierced the water and struck my eyes. And then I finally snapped back to reality. My eyes flew open in the sterile room. As I gasped for air, lungs burning for oxygen. My throat was parched, stinging with a sharp, dry ache. That very pain acted as an anchor, bringing me back to my senses, and dragging back the memories of the nightmare before the blackout. Jiang Qiu, the crash on the way to the airport. The final image etched into my mind was Jiang Qiu holding me tight, taking the brunt of the impact. She seemed to have whispered something to me then. I didn't know if those words were a reality, or just a desperate hallucination born of my fading consciousness. In that terrifying, life-altering moment, Jiang Qiu actually said, I love you. My heart felt heavy, tangled in a web of conflicting emotions. Just then, a nurse pushed a clattering medical cart into the room to swap out my IV drip bottle. Seeing me conscious, a relieved smile broke across her face. Sir, you're finally awake. Thank goodness. If only your girlfriend could wake up as quickly as you. That would be a miracle. Her words made me freeze. Girlfriend? She must be referring to Jiang Qiu, who was in the crash with me. I didn't have the energy to correct her mistaken assumption. I hurriedly asked how she was doing now. The nurse let out a heavy, weary sigh. She's still in critical condition, fighting for her life. My chest tightened painfully. As a wave of crushing guilt flooded my heart, I knew the truth. Jiang Qiu had shielded me, absorbing the brunt of the impact. That's why I only escaped with these minor external injuries. Why does she constantly have to do things like this, always forcing me to feel forever indebted to her? Yet I simply lacked the cold, heartless resolve to turn a blind eye and walk away. Even if she had some ulterior motive behind it, it doesn't change the fact that Jiang Qiu saved my life this time. I've never been the type of person who likes owing anyone. After a long moment, I exhaled a cloud of heavy, stagnant air. My mind was made up. I want to go see her. Could you please help me get to her room? Once she's fully recovered, I'll finally make my exit. The nurse offered a sympathetic look and nodded. Understood. I'll grab your IV pole and bring it over to assist you in walking there. 10 minutes later, at the ICU ward, I stood outside the intensive care unit, only able to watch through the cold, transparent glass of the viewing window. Jiang Qiu lay motionless on the hospital bed, eyes tightly shut. Her complexion was paler than I had ever seen it in all my years. My heart hammered with a long-lost sinking dread. I never wanted anyone to get hurt, especially not because of a sacrifice made for me. The nurse sensed my anxiety and whispered, "Don't worry. She's going to pull through. Fate favors the kind-hearted." I forced a weak, bitter tug at the corners of my mouth. True, her luck has always been extraordinarily good. For 8 long years, any project Jiang Qiu set her ambitious sights on would without fail end up firmly in her grasp. Every goal she chased was always spectacularly surpassed. Reporters used to grill her on her secret to success, asking President Jiang, "What do you believe is your absolute greatest stroke of luck?" Jiang Qiu would reply, "You is my greatest blessing and my eternal pillar of support." In the eyes of the world, we were the ultimate power duo. But every single time the press asked, "President Jiang, are you an assistant Shen lovers Xi's?" Jiang Qiu would always casually dismiss the idea. "We are partners for life, nothing more." Just like now, as the nurse curiously asks, "You two must have been together for ages. He clearly loves you deeply." But this time, the one denying the relationship was me. I simply shook my head. No, she doesn't love me, and she isn't my girlfriend. Now it was the nurse's turn to be stunned. She shot a confused glance at me, then back at the unconscious Jiang Qiu behind the glass, looking like she wanted to argue the point. Before she could utter another word, the head nurse called her away. I stood alone outside the ward, watching for a long time, my fingertips pressed against the cold glass. As I whispered, "Jiang Qiu, just wake up. I don't want to owe you anything." I turned to walk away. At the exact moment I turned my back, the person on the hospital bed slowly fluttered her eyes open. As if linked by some inexplicable telepathy, her gaze drifted toward my retreating silhouette. Seeing me in her hazy peripheral vision, her consciousness finally began to flicker back to life. The moment she saw I was safe, her awareness fully returned to her aching body. Chengyu is unharmed. That's all that matters. Shortly after I returned to my own room, someone informed me that Miss Jiang had regained consciousness and had just been transferred to a regular ward. I had only been gone for a few minutes, yet I suppressed my surprise and hurried over. I went to see Jiang Qiu. When I arrived, the doctor had just finished his rounds. Jiang Qiu was the only one left in the room. The second I stepped through the door, my eyes locked directly onto hers. I approached her bedside, noticing her entire arm was heavily wrapped in gauze, with dark crimson stains seeping through the white fabric. The crushing guilt in my heart felt like a jagged blade, plunging 1 inch deeper into my chest. I exhaled sharply, trying to steady my nerves. "Thank you." Jiang Qiu's ventilator hadn't been removed yet, making it impossible for her to speak a single word. She remained utterly silent, her eyes fixed intensely on me. Without wavering for even a fraction of a second, I clenched my fists. "Jiang Qiu, I won't leave your side until you've fully recovered." Hearing those words, Jiang Qiu's obsidian eyes seemed to flicker with a spark of hope. I didn't catch the shift, nor did I care to pay attention. Over the course of the following 2 weeks, I focused on my own recovery, while frequenting Jiang Qiu's hospital room to assist the nurses in looking after her. The company's daily operation were temporarily left in the hands of Xiaohe and the core team. Most of the time, I simply sat on the sofa by the window, preoccupied with my own business. But to Jiang Qiu, this was the companionship she desperately craved. I was finally back within her line of sight, staying right there by her side, close enough to touch. As Jiang Qiu's condition steadily improved, and the breathing apparatus was finally stripped away, the first breath she took was to whisper, you. I watched from the sidelines, but offered no emotional response. Once the doctors had finished their rounds and left, Jiang Qiu suddenly reached out and squeezed my hand. Her voice was incredibly raw and raspy. I'm still not better yet." I froze, momentarily bewildered by her sudden claim. "Don't try to speak yet. Just have some warm water." I spoke softly while gently prying my hand from her grasp. "Don't talk. Just take a sip of water." With that, I carefully disengaged from her touch, standing up to pour a fresh glass for her. As I handed the water to Jiang Qiu, the realization suddenly hit me like a lightning bolt. I finally understood why she had blurted out such a nonsensical, desperate line. It was because of the promise I had made, that I wouldn't leave until she was fully healed. Jiang Qiu was terrified that I would turn and vanish the moment she recovered. I looked up at the woman lying in the hospital bed, my heart swirling with a mess of complicated emotions. I can't quite put my finger on this bizarre sensation. Jiang Qiu has been confined to this hospital bed for over 2 weeks, and she's visibly withered away. As she grips the glass, the sharp lines of her knuckles and wrists are painfully prominent. Yet, she seems utterly indifferent to her own fragile state, her gaze never once wavering or drifting away from me. This isn't the Jiang Qiu I remember. The woman I knew was supposed to be sophisticated, mature, and absolutely irresistible. The ruthless, high-flying CEO. She always maintained a perfectly polished and breathtakingly gorgeous facade for the world. At this very moment, I feel it more deeply than ever. Jiang Qiu has fundamentally changed. And as for this transformation, I honestly don't know how to feel about it. Staring at this vulnerable, weakened version of Jiang Qiu, I realize I'm no longer as repulsed as I was in the beginning. But that's as far as my sympathy goes. Jiang Qiu sets the water glass back on the nightstand, her fingertips hovering just inches from my forehead, aching to reach out yet paralyzed by the fear of rejection. Does it still hurt even? I shake my head, looking at her body covered in scars, and frown. Just worry about yourself. Jang Teo pulls her hand back, but a faint smile plays on her lips. These past few days have made me truly happy. I look into her sharp, beautiful eyes, her lips curving slightly as she mumbles something, leaving me speechless. Suddenly, someone strides into the ward, accompanied by a woman's sharp voice. Cheng-yu, are you in here? How are your injuries holding up? Both of us turn to face the intruder simultaneously, one of us wearing a mask of confusion, the other radiating pure icy hostility. I'm taken aback. Gunanji, what are you doing here? Gunanji ignored the other's frigid stare. I stammered in surprise, Gunanji, Anante. Why have you come all this way? Gunanji completely ignored Jang Tio's blade-like glare and walked in with a playful smile, placing a bouquet of flowers into the vase. Little Juan heard about the crash and hasn't stopped nagging me to check on you. I only just managed to find the time to drop by. I freeze, but I didn't tell him. I didn't want him to worry. Gunanji arched an eyebrow dismissively. You think the great President Jiang could be in a coma from a car wreck? And expect people not to dig for the truth. The internet is already buzzing with the news. She shot a mocking, playful glance toward Jang Tio before turning back to me. But why are you still in her room? Don't tell me you're planning on rekindling that old flame? Jang Tio looked ready to explode and tell her to get the hell out of her sight. But she froze at those words. Before I could even formulate a response, Gunanji smirked. Just look at her right now. She looks absolutely pathetic and sickly. You'd be much better off looking at me instead. I couldn't stomach another word of this. I immediately cut her off. Enough, Yeo. Stop talking absolute nonsense. Gunanji saw Jang Tio's face turn dark, with a murderous rage, and it made her day. She was deliberately poking the bear to provoke Jang Tio. Jang Tio had caused her nothing but trouble over the years, and she needed a way to finally pay her back in kind. Jang Tio had clearly reached her breaking point. She spat out a single icy command, get out. Gunanji hadn't planned on overstaying her welcome anyway. She gave me a casual wave and sauntered out. Once again, it was just the two of us left in the ward. Jang Tio stared at me, her eyes deep and overflowing with a chaotic mix of emotions. I remained speechless, letting a heavy silence hang between us. Soon enough, my phone began to vibrate. I need to take this call. I stood up and headed for the door. As I stepped out of the hospital room, I let out a long, weary breath. Whenever I'm trapped in a room with Jang Tio, I find it impossible to truly let my guard down. My heart felt like it was being crushed by a heavy weight. The call was from Sheng Xiaozi. The moment I picked up, his voice crackled through the line, sharp with frantic worry. Cheng-yu, you were in a car accident. Are you okay? How bad is it? I forced a light tone to soothe him. His voice remained frantic and breathless. Cheng-yu, you were in a crash. Tell me you're all right. I chuckled softly to reassure him. I'm fine, really. I hadn't breathed a word of the accident to anyone, because I didn't want to cause a panic. But just as Gunanji pointed out, with Jang Tio being the other victim involved, it was only a matter of time before the news reached them all. As long as my mother is kept in the dark, I'm okay. She still believes I'm just away on a business trip. Sheng Xiaozi immediately blurted out, where are you right now? I'm coming to find you. I told him I was still at the hospital. Upon hearing this, Sheng Xiaozi froze. Didn't you say you were perfectly fine? Are you just sugarcoating things to keep me from worrying? I quickly clarified, no, it's not like that. It's because Jang Tio's injuries are incredibly severe. She saved my life. And I can't bear to be indebted to her. Silence hung on the line for a few seconds before he spoke. Fine. I'll drop by to see you in a little while. I thought you had already headed back home recently, so I went out of town and haven't checked in. I never imagined a tragedy like this would happen. I reassured him, it's all right. I didn't actually sustain any major injuries. Over the receiver, I could hear the manager calling out for Sheng Xiaozi. You must be swamped, right? Sheng Xiaozi didn't argue. I'll see you later tonight then. After hanging up, I made my way back toward the ward. Right at the threshold of the room, I accidentally witnessed a bizarre and disturbing sight. Jang Tio was actually ripping the IV needle out of her own hand. I burst through the door and shouted to stop her. Jang Tio, what on earth are you doing? Oh. Her movement stiffened instantly. She looked at me with a furrowed brow. You? Her hand hung limp, as blood began to rapidly ooze from the puncture wound. I rushed forward and grabbed her hand, clutching a tissue to apply pressure to the wound, while slamming the emergency call button on the headboard. I glared at her, my heart racing. Jang Tio, have you lost your mind? How? Jang Tio looked at me with a face full of pathetic longing. You. Please, don't leave me, okay? A sudden spark of rage ignited within me. Am I not standing right here in front of you? No matter what, she shouldn't be resorting to self-harm. Jang Tio fell silent, merely staring at me. I'm right here, aren't I? She shouldn't be hurting herself like this, no matter the reason. Jung Teo stopped talking and simply kept her eyes glued to mine, her other hand cautiously reaching out to grasp my wrist. She didn't dare use force yet. She refused to let go. Suddenly, a sharp memory flashed back. It suddenly hit me that this wasn't the first time. Lately, Jung Teo either had issues with her IV needle or claimed her medication was somehow wrong. My expression darkened instantly. Those times you said you accidentally snagged the cord. Were those all calculated lies too? Jung Teo completely ignored my question. I just wanted you to stay by my side a little longer. I opened my mouth to speak, then stopped. 1,000 words were choked up in my throat. Seeing the sheer desperation and anxiety in her eyes, I felt an unshakable bitter taste in my mouth. How did Jung Teo ever end up like this? I looked her dead in the eye and spoke sternly. Jung Teo, if you ever pull a stunt like this again, I'm done with you. Jung Teo's pale lips trembled slightly, before she finally whispered, okay. After a pause, she added softly, your hands are still so cold. I brushed it off indifferently. It doesn't matter. You get used to it after a while. I stiffened instinctively, trying to pull my hand away. But she held on tight as a flood of past memories surged through my mind, leaving me in total emotional turmoil. Jung Teo spoke up once more. You! Please, come back to me. Just then, a nurse rushed in. What happened? Is everything okay? I lied quickly. Her needle just slipped out by accident. Could you please replace it for her? The nurse stepped over to inspect the damage, forcing Jung Teo to finally let go of my hand. As my warmth vanished from her palm, a hollow void opened up in Jung Teo's heart. She absolutely loathed that feeling of abandonment, but she had given me her word, so she had no choice but to let things play out. Jung Teo spent 2 grueling months recovering in the hospital. No matter how much she tried to stall for time, the day of her discharge finally arrived. On the day we were to part ways, she insisted on driving me to the airport. I didn't bother refusing her, nor did I show any particular emotion. Inside the terminal, the boarding announcement blared over the speakers. Passengers for Flight 46528, please proceed to the gate. I gripped my suitcase, my face a mask of indifference. The boarding call echoed through the airport again. All passengers for Flight 46528, please prepare to board. I hoisted my luggage and gave a final reminder, take care of yourself. As she watched my retreating back move further away, everything seemed to overlap with the moment I first left her. An endless wave of panic surged within Jung Teo's heart. She lunged forward, almost entirely losing her self-control, and gripped my hand with a death-like clutch. You? I knit my brows and sighed in frustration. Jung Teo, it's time to move on. She held on to me tighter, refusing to let go. No! I can't move on, and I don't ever want to. I truly cannot survive losing you again. I gave her a single look before turning my head away. My resolve was ironclad. There is no way I'm not going back. I must return home and let my mother know I'm safe. Staying here is absolutely out of the question. Otherwise, all the persistence I've shown these past days, wouldn't it all just become one giant joke? I had genuinely moved on at this very moment. My attitude toward Jung Teo had softened slightly, but only to the point where I didn't despise her presence. Returning to how things used to be absolutely impossible. Jung Teo still failed to make me stay. Once again, she watched the plane ascend into the sky, staring at her empty palm as her chest felt like a massive hollow cavern had been carved out of it. Xiao He spoke up at the perfect moment. President Jung, please don't give up hope. No, I feel like Brother Chungyu's icy exterior is already starting to thaw compared to before. Jung Teo slowly lifted her eyes upon hearing that. Is that so? Back at my home in Yunnan, the second my mother saw me, she hurriedly pulled me over to take a seat. Chengyu, why did this work trip take you so long this time? You must be absolutely exhausted. Quick, go rest. A warm feeling filled my chest as I smiled and shook my head. I'm not tired. It just took a bit more time than expected. My mother gently stroked my hair, her eyes overflowing with maternal concern. You say you're not tired, but I don't believe you for a second. You've always been a child who never complains about hard work. What do you want for dinner? I'll cook whatever you like. I answered sincerely, anything you cook is my favorite, Mom. Yeah. My mother beamed with joy. Good, good. She laughed, standing up to head toward the kitchen. As she walked off, at that moment, my gaze accidentally drifted toward a corner of the living room where a pile of unfamiliar items was stacked. Curiosity piqued, I asked, Mom, what are those moi? My mother followed my gaze to the corner key and casually replied, those are some packages that arrived a while ago. They're addressed to you, so I just set them aside for the time being, thinking I'd wait for your return so you could check them. I froze for a second. Gifts for me? I began to unbox them one by one. A fountain pen, some sparklers, an empty manila folder, and a vintage-style tie clip. At first glance, it looked like a pile of completely useless junk. It felt almost like a prank played by some stranger. Confused, I sifted through the boxes and flipped over the sender's info. It was no longer anonymous. but clearly bore three unmistakable words. Zhang Qiu. Tucked at the very bottom was a handwritten note. Ah, you, I was far too arrogant and self-centered in the past, failing to ever consider your feelings. I'm so sorry. If you still remember what these objects represent, then please try to believe that. My love for you is no empty lie. That elegant flowing calligraphy was undeniably penned by Zhang Qiu's own hand. I stood there dazed for a moment, staring at the collection of items as the weight of them hit me. Suddenly, the hidden meaning behind each one became clear. The fountain pen was the very first gift I ever gave her. The sparklers were from the night we celebrated our first successful business deal together. The empty folder was, so even in her cold silence, Zhang Qiu had been cherishing every single memory connected to me. I couldn't snap out of my daze for a long time. A sudden, inexplicable pang of bitterness welled up in my chest. Hesitantly, I pulled out my phone and pulled up Zhang Qiu's contact info. I tapped out a message. Zhang Qiu, what is the point of sending all this stuff, Awani? The reply came almost instantly, yet she avoided the question. Ah, you, I love you. I stared at the screen in silence for an eternity. Ultimately, I didn't reply, setting the phone aside. If your feelings are truly genuine, then let the passing of time be the judge of everything. Zhang Qiu, we have a long road ahead of us.